What is happening, all you mentees? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an advanced look at the Moon Knight Omnibus from Marvel Comics. So please, stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. Now, before I get started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the folks in Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus hits the direct market on January 6th, and then a couple of weeks later in the book market. Now, what we're looking at here is the direct market cover. This is the direct market cover by Bill Sienkiewicz, but on your left is the standard edition cover by David Finch. And honestly, both of these, for two different reasons, are freaking perfect for this collected edition. So let's talk about this book and what it collects. We'll look at the inside and talk just a little bit about the plot. I don't like to give things away, but let's look at the spine together. So here is what that spine looks like. I love the old logo look to this. And then in the back here are all the comics that are collected inside of this particular omnibus. Now, under the dust jacket, we just have the Moon Knight logo. Ha! The moon there. Volume 1. Love seeing Volume 1. Hopefully this will sell enough to get a Volume 2. And then just black on the back. So let's take a look inside and talk about the book. Okay, so this is our very first Moon Knight Omnibus. This is a big deal, and we're going for the very beginning. So here we have Moon Knight Omnibus. This is what it collects, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. Here are all the creators behind this, but the biggest ones, of course, are Doug Moench and Don Perlin, who were the creators of Moon Knight in the pages of Werewolf by Night. And of course, everybody, I think most of us remember Bill Sienkiewicz's run on Moon Knight, just because of its epicness. Here are the table of contents. Here we have the table of contents, kicking it off with Werewolf by Night 32, first appearance of Moon Knight, and taking us all the way to Moon Knight 20. So let's take a look in here and briefly talk about the history of Moon Knight and who he is. So here we are at the beginning of his first appearance with Werewolf by Night 32, where Moon Knight, Mark Spector, is just hired as a mercenary to go after Jack Russell, Werewolf by Night, and capture him for this group known as the Committee. And of course, not everything is it seems with that group. Now, what does this collect? We'll go back to what this story is about here in a second. So this collects Werewolf by Night 32 and 33. So this is a two-parter where he's fighting Werewolf by Night. It also collects Marvel Spotlights 28 and 29, Defenders 47 through 50. So that's his short-lived stint with the Defenders. Collecting Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man 22 and 23, Marvel 2 and 152, Moon Knight 1 through 20, Marvel Team Up Annual number 4, Amazing Spider-Man 220, material from Defenders 51, and then material from Hulk Magazine 11 through 15, 17 through 18, and 20, and then material from Marvel Preview number 21. So, actually, if I'm not mistaken, this is Keith Giffen drawing this issue right here. Yeah, Keith Giffen, Klaus Janson. And what's interesting is when Keith gives us the Defenders issues, when he joined the Defenders for literally just a little bit. When Keith Giffen was drawing this, I remember thinking, man, that art is really cool. Because I had some of these, some of the essentials of this stuff. But when we go here, and it's still Keith Giffen and Dan Green now doing the inks, he has more of a Kirby-ish art style. And Keith Giffen is one of these artists that was able to change his art. Still did it from time to time when he was drawing Legion of Superheroes in the 90s. So, I mean, it's not like this is a foreign concept to his art, but I always thought that was interesting that he changed his art style up. Now, this book retails for $125 and has 1,016 pages. So this is the very beginning. It's not everything. It's not all of Doug Moench's run on Moon Knight. So let's talk about who Moon Knight is, though. What exactly is Moon Knight? Why is this guy dressed like this in this ridiculous outfit? One of the things that I've always heard, and I'm sure most people that have collected comic books have always heard about Moon Knight, is that he's a poor man's Batman. Because they both have come from wealth, they both use gimmicky items on their utility belt to get out of trouble. They don't really have any superhuman strength. However, Moon Knight kind of does, honestly. But That's one of the biggest things I've always heard of. And honestly, growing up as a kid, Moon Knight is one of those characters I avoided. Not on purpose, just because I had no interest in him. He would show up in the pages of the West Coast Avengers, or Avengers West Coast, rather. And he would show up in pages of the crossover events, but it wasn't until Chuck Dixon's, I think it was Chuck Dixon's run, and then eventually Terry Cavanagh took over Moon Knight, Mark Spector Moon Knight, in the 90s, that I got into his character. Mainly because of the artwork, but I was also a big Chuck Dixon fan. Now, what is his origin? His origin's a little bit different than Bruce Wayne's. You know, his parents weren't murdered in a dark alley. So he's actually been a Marine, a ex-CIA operative, a boxer, and of course a mercenary, like I talked about earlier. And he kind of got thrown into this world because he got hired by this guy named Raoul Bushman, who becomes one of his arch nemesis later on in the ongoing series, to go and find this archaeological dig. And he is betrayed and left for dead. So what ends up happening is that these Egyptian folk pick him up and put him over by the Khonshu statue. And Khonshu, who is the moon god of Egypt, decides to give new life to Mark Spector. So he gives him some superhuman abilities, but this all comes with a price. This resurrection and superhuman abilities come with a price. He has to be the avatar of the moon god. So that's pretty much the story of Mark Spector. And the other different thing that he has that Bruce Wayne doesn't is he pretends to be other people. He pretends to be the millionaire Stephen Grant. He pretends to be a taxi cab driver, and I cannot remember that guy's name, to kind of infiltrate the criminal world. So with this whole Khonshu backstory, this is where he decides to become a crime fighter. So he wears this silver cloak, which is loosely based on Khonshu's outfit, and he becomes Moon Knight, aka the Fist of Khonshu. And that's all explained in his ongoing series, because towards the beginning it's a little hard to keep up with who he is, right? Some people are calling him Steven, other people are calling him Mark, and he has a sidekick. He does have a, I guess, okay, like Alfred, a guy named Frenchie, and that's Jean-Paul Duchamp. That's his buddy that works with him. He's a French pilot, and term of endearment calls him Frenchie. Not sure how well that would fly in today's world. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the story of Mark Spector, and of course, how he got wrapped up in the world of crime fighting. And it's not until his ongoing series, and the backup stories of Hulk, that you get to find most of this stuff out. Now, I've talked about how Doug Minch and Don Perlin created the character. However, in the backup pages here of the Hulk magazine, that are collected back here, it's where we are introduced to Bill Sienkiewicz. And Bill Sienkiewicz later on becomes the ongoing artist for Moon Knight. Now, when these issues originally came out, I think they were in black and white. I don't have the original Hulk magazines, but they reprinted them in comic book size format and recolored them. Now, I know the Marvel preview book that's collected in here, that's been colored. Yeah, this right here was colored by Steve Oliff, because when this originally came out, this was black and white, and they went back in and colored it. Now, the magazine was not part of the Comics Code, so they got away with a lot more violence in there, much like the Savage Sword of Conan, and unlike his own ongoing series, they turned down the violent style just a little bit. But here's the ongoing series, and what's really cool here, if you've never read this stuff, you have to appreciate the evolution of Bill Sienkiewicz's artwork, where at first he kind of reminds you a little bit of Neil Adams, right? Like, at least to me, he reminded me of Neil Adams. But then by the time he gets to about, I want to say like issue 9 maybe, when he starts inking his own stuff, that's when you realize this is the Bill Sienkiewicz that I remember. So this is all stuff from issue 8 right here. But I think by the time we get to this issue right here, Bill Sienkiewicz is not just penciling, but also inking his own stuff. You start seeing the transformation into what you're probably used to seeing Bill Sienkiewicz's artwork look like. And yes, this kind of stuff here. And there's Bushman, and there's Midnight Man, and those two are probably his biggest arch nemesis towards the beginning. Later on, he ends up joining, like I mentioned, the West Coast Avengers and stuff. But now this only takes us to Moon Knight number 20. So there's enough for a Volume 2. And honestly, they can collect the 1985 miniseries with that Volume 2 as well. I think Bill Sienkiewicz drew all the way up to issue 30, if I'm not mistaken. But let's look in the back here for some extras and then talk about the binding of the book. Okay, so here's some stuff from the Hulk magazine, number 13, Marvel Preview house ads, Moon Knight house ads, some stuff you may have seen before, some stuff that you may not have seen. Most of this, not all of this, has been collected in the first 2 Epic collections. Actually, this collects part of the second Epic collection. It's not all of it. That's why I think there's enough material for a second omnibus. And hell, they can take us all the way to Charlie Houston's run. That would be awesome, collecting the modern Moon Knight stuff. Because we do have a TV show coming out. I haven't even kept up. I don't even know who's been casted as Moon Knight. Once I heard, I think it was Keanu Reeves, maybe? I'm probably wrong. Oh, here's his, some other people here from his supporting cast. There's Frenchie, Crawley, and Gina, and Scarlet. I'll let you find out who those characters are. So, to me, you know, Mark Spector's a lot more complicated than Batman. So to people that have read it and have compared him to Batman, I completely understand. I mean, the guy has Moonarangs, I think, and Batman has Batarangs. Is that what they were called? I seem to remember them being called Moonarangs for some reason. Here's original artwork. So I completely understand where people are coming from when they're like, oh yeah, he's just a poor man's Batman. But I think he's a lot more complicated. And then later on, there are comic concepts where people are saying, oh no, he's just schizophrenic. And those are really interesting to read. Here are some trade paperbacks, Epic Collections. And there is Volume 1 of the trade paperback. And what is this here? This is a remaster variant cover from Bill Sienkiewicz. And then Moon Knight 200. This is what they use for the standard edition. Now, as far as the binding, so there's the eye. You know, for a book over 1,000 pages, it's not a very big eye compared to some of the other ones that we've seen, like Excalibur or New Mutants. So that does affect some of the spreads. Here, for example, is a spread all the way in the back of the book, but just to kind of give you a little bit of that gutter loss, you have to hold it down in order to see the actual dollar sign to see the 2 here on the cover. But there's not a lot of artwork like this in here, because most of it is traditional art with just panels on each page. The spreads are mainly the 2-sided covers. But I did want to point that out for those people that, you know, it bothers. But that, as they say, is that. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online source for collected editions up to 50% off retail price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on excellent packaging, so your stuff gets to you in excellent condition, and they have amazing customer service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And for all you Minties that are watching, if you're a first-time customer, don't forget to mention that Near Mint Condition sent you their way for a promotional credit on free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your source for the hottest books with deep discounts, customer service, and excellent shipping that will keep you coming back for more. Now, that was the content, the page count, and the build of this omnibus. Let me know in those comments down below if you're picking this up, if you have the Epic collections, if you read this in single issues, or if you're going in blind. Love to know all those comments down below, which cover you're going to get too. I'm a big fan of both of these, honestly. One for nostalgia's sake, and one because David Finch is such a badass artist. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to check out our Redbubble, our Patreon. Amazing ways to support the channel. More importantly, please everybody stay healthy, stay safe, and much love to all of you.